Okay. So the topic tonight is how to understand and evaluate when you are attacked by people who are brainwashed. I want to do some philosophical background because I think it will be helpful in getting a perspective on this question. When we talk about good and evil, those concepts have many dimensions. And even with respect to human beings, one of many distinctions that are important, one important distinction is to distinguish between good and evil actions on the one hand, and good and evil agents on the other hand. And they don't match up. It is possible for a good agent to perform a bad action, not by accident or by momentary lapse, but pursuing goodness, the action can be bad. And an evil agent, pursuing evil, the action can be good. So it's really a complete breakdown in implication between the goodness or the evil of the agent on the one hand, and the goodness or the evil of the actions on the other hand. So let me illustrate this for you. George is driving on the freeway in Chicago. It's January 3rd. It's sleeting. The temperature outside with the wind chill is minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit. And he sees a car pulled over at the side of the road. Well, the guy's not there enjoying the scenery. Obviously, his car is broken. Something's wrong. And George happens to be a mechanic. So he stops and pulls over his car and knocks on the window and says, "What's wrong?" He says, "I don't know. It won't turn on." Open the hood. So George leans in and he sees some problems and he fixes them. And he closes the hood. He says, "Okay, George, to the driver, turn it on." And the driver turns it on, and the motor explodes, bang, and out comes a puff of smoke, and there's a total meltdown. George is a good guy. He's a good guy. He stopped to help. He's standing out there in this sleet, freezing, getting wet. He made a mistake. He destroyed the guy's motor. That's not good. Or, to take a more realistic, actual example from history, which I have used many times, up until 200 years ago, standard medical practice was to bleed people when they have fevers. That means to extract blood from their bodies, either with leeches or suction cups, because from ancient times, that's what medical practice said. If a person has a fever, he's got too much blood, and you should reduce the blood supply. That doesn't help his health. That's why we don't do it anymore. Got it? Now, that means he was injuring them. That's not good. That's bad. To injure people's health is bad. But the doctors were perfectly responsible. Many were perfectly responsible, well-motivated, caring, sensitive individuals who were trying to do their best. Just didn't work out to be their best. Didn't work out to be the best for the patients. So good people acting on good morals with good intentions can do things that are bad. Likewise, in the opposite direction, Peter's drowning in the river, and George jumps in at some risk to himself and pulls Peter out to the dry land, rolls him over, gets his wallet out of his back pocket, and runs. All George wants is the wallet. If he could have gotten the wallet out of Peter's pocket in the water and let Peter drown, he'd have let him drown. He had no interest in saving Peter whatsoever. He just wanted the money. But he did save Peter's life. Saving Peter's life is definitely good. Here's a person who's evil, motivated by evil, his whole project is evil, but in pursuing his project, he happens to do some good. So when you talk about good and evil, it's very, very important to decide what it is you're talking about. Are you talking about the actions that are done, or are you talking about the nature of the people behind the actions? Now, there is a natural mental set when dealing with the current war situation that these people are evil. And because they're evil, we who are opposing them are taking the side of the right and the good. And by eliminating them, we are eliminating evil from the world. We're making the world a better place because we're ridding the world of people who are evil. Then when someone points out, look, many of them are subject to one-sided education and what you could call brainwashing and programming and all the rest, and being systematically lied to and manipulated and motivated in part by threat and fright and all the rest, then when people raise those considerations, it comes as a threat to the saints who are out to destroy evil. And now someone suggests, well, maybe they aren't so evil. I mean, maybe the idea of them as evil is a little short-sighted and superficial. We don't usually regard people who do something when they're misled or systematically lied to or just subject to false information. We don't regard the people as evil. What about the doctors who bled people until 200 years ago? We don't regard them as evil. We can regard them as morally virtuous. Just they had the wrong information. So somebody says, well, these people who are committing these atrocities, they've been lied to, they've been manipulated, they don't have access to opposing points of view. Wouldn't that mitigate their evil? And the response of the public, which wants to be on the right side, is don't talk like that, because if you do, you reduce their evil, in which case my fighting for the right becomes diluted. It isn't as pure as I thought. It robs me of my motivation to really oppose them and puts us in danger. I think that response is short-sighted, because in opposing evil, opposing the existence of people who are evil isn't the only evil that needs to be opposed. In addition to opposing and perhaps ridding the world of evil people, there's also opposing and ridding the world of evil actions. And since, as we pointed out, evil actions can be performed by people who are good, the commitment to rid the world of evil actions is independent from attacking people who are evil and ridding the world of evil people. And if the evil actions are really very destructive, it can be very, very important to rid the world of those actions, even when done by good people. And now for the final push, and suppose the only way to rid the world of those actions is to rid the world of those people, then it can be right to oppose those people and eliminate them, neutralize them, as the current terminology has it, for the sake of making sure the actions don't get performed, even if those people aren't evil. And in this respect, I want to acquaint you with two statements that the Rabbi makes in his Mishnah Torah, which I think illustrate this in very clear detail. We have a concept in Jewish law of a rodef. A rodef is someone who is chasing somebody else. Usually it's in the context of chasing him to kill him. Our law teaches us, Habar lahargecha, hashkem lahargo. Someone is coming to try to kill you, get up earlier than he gets up and kill him. That means you don't wait for him to come charging into your house. If you know that his project is to kill you, you can go to his house and kill him. And indeed, more than that, let's say you're observing A chasing B, A wants to kill B. Then you're duty-bound to stop A by killing him, if there's no other way to stop him. If you can stop him by wounding him, you have to just wound him rather than... But if the only other way to stop him, you can stop him by killing him. Preventing a murder is what is a prime example of Jewish law. And here it makes absolutely no difference what's going on in the mind of the pursuer. I remember hearing an illustration. They used to say that a hypnotist couldn't give a person a post-hypnotic suggestion to do something that was really against his basic nature, really against his basic principles. And a very sophisticated response to that was, okay, imagine you give the person a post-hypnotic suggestion to go home and kill his parents. According to the way you describe it, he's not going to do that. But suppose you give him a post-hypnotic suggestion that when he goes home and he opens the door, he's going to find a tiger in the room, sitting in his father's chair. He has no resistance to killing tigers. Doesn't violate his principles to say that there's a tiger in his father's chair. He'll simply hallucinate that the thing sitting in his father's chair is a tiger and shoot him. Is it appropriate for the father to protect himself? Is it appropriate for an onlooker to protect him by stopping the son from shooting the father? Here, the vicious criminal is the hypnotist who gave him the post-hypnotic suggestion. So what? The father's innocent and is in danger of losing his life, and therefore you'll prevent the murder by killing the son. But the Rambam goes much further than this. He says, consider the case of a pregnant woman where the pregnancy is endangering her life. If she just leaves the pregnancy as it is, she's going to die. So Jewish law says that you kill the fetus inside her. Because, says the Rambam, the fetus is a rodef. The fetus counts as a pursuer that's endangering her life, and you save her by eliminating the pursuer. The Rambam goes further than this. Suppose you're on a ship, and there's a storm, and the ship is foundering, and it's a ship that carries packages weighing tons. And it's because it has the packages on the ship that it can't rise above the waves. Then the packages are pursuers. They're pursuing the lives of the people on the ship. And you throw them overboard in the same spirit that you would stop someone from committing murder. For the Rambam, the idea of a pursuer is not a classification of people and their activities. The idea of a pursuer is anything which threatens the life. I don't mean threatens in the sense of trivially, promising to do something. I mean, its existence is something which is going to cost someone his life. Then it counts as a pursuer, and you eliminate it. Destroy it, throw it overboard, whatever you need to do in order to save the life. So now you have the case of an attacker who's brainwashed. He certainly is no more innocent than a package on a ship, which is endangering the lives of the ship. He's certainly not more innocent than a fetus in his mother's womb, whose existence is threatening the life of the mother. He's coming with weapons to kill people, not to mention torture them and disfigure them with sadistic pleasure. So the challenge here, I think, is to defuse the whole issue. whether they are brainwashed or they aren't brainwashed, and to what extent they should have made a better investigation, and to what extent that normal human logic would have refuted what they believe. We can bypass that. It's an interesting subject. It's not a non-significant subject, but we can bypass that and say they are committed to performing actions which are evil, and that means that we have a moral duty to prevent those actions, and if the only way to prevent those actions is to eliminate those people, then we have a moral duty to eliminate those people, just to stop the actions, without passing any judgment whatsoever to how responsible they are for their actions. So I think that in the present case, it couldn't possibly be clearer that we are confronting a group which is committed to this evil sort of action, and in that case, opposing them with any means necessary is certainly fully justified. That's point number one. I don't see anybody with any dissenting views, so I'm assuming that we're all on the same boat. Now, the second question will be, how far does this go? How deeply ingrained are these actions, these projects, and these goals enshrined in the public at large? And the reason for asking that question is because there is a question about the cost of innocent, blameless lives in attacking and eradicating the evil. And I think the question, which isn't discussed enough because it's not politically correct, is what proportion of the population qualifies as innocent, blameless people? So you say, well, did this person ever shoot anybody? Let's say no. So that means they're innocent. Well, maybe. But let's ask, why didn't they shoot anybody? Because they don't know how to use a gun? Is that the reason? Is it because they never had an opportunity to shoot someone without too much danger to themselves? Could it be that this person, in a situation where that person's security was guaranteed and had a weapon, would shoot someone? If the only reason that the person hasn't shot someone is because they don't have the means to do it, or they're afraid of risking themselves, but given the opportunity they definitely would, they're just as evil. Their actions are just as evil. They just haven't had a chance yet to put the actions into effect. If I want to ensure the eradication of those actions, it's a reasonable case that those people also either have to be instructed to change their culture, which is extremely impractical, or they have to be eliminated also. Every survey that has been taken in Gaza, what would you vote for if there were free elections tomorrow? Thank you very much. What would you vote for if there were free elections tomorrow? A considerable majority say they would vote for Hamas. Well, that means those people agree with those actions. And it's not just that they agree with them, their parents. How do they train their children? What do they leave their children to look forward to? One of the progressive media people in this country made a national broadcast where she said, I made a terrible mistake. She has a friend who's one of the settlers, and they're friends, and they were talking about women generally throughout the world, and the settler friend said, the highest goal for a woman in Gaza is for her child to die a martyr killing Jews. And this progressive broadcaster said, don't talk to me like that. That's just prejudice. I don't want to hear that from you. I don't want to hear that ever again. That's just something which I can't take. After October 7th, she changed her mind. She changed her mind. And she said so. And she said it in public. I made a mistake. So here you have a society, summer camps where they practice guerrilla warfare with 7-year-olds holding machine guns without bullets, of course, but practicing crawling on the ground and shooting at the enemy. Who's the enemy, do you think? Squids? Butterflies? The enemy is Jews. So now you have a school system and a camp system which is all dedicated to producing these actions. You say, but this one never shot a gun. So what? When a Jew is killed, they hand out candies to the children to celebrate. How does that child grow up? What does the child have in mind? They're heroes. So when you're talking about opposing evil actions, it's not enough to oppose them in the people who have already committed them. Remember, the directive in our sources is, someone who's coming to kill you, beat him to it. Don't wait till he pulls a gun. There are states in the United States where you can't defend yourself by shooting someone until he pulls a gun. You better be quick on the draw. He gets to pull the gun first. Suppose he pulls the trigger. Too bad. You're dead. Morally, that's insane. Our law is someone who breaks and enters into your house, you can shoot him right away. Because we say if he did that, he's ready to kill you because he wants your money. And he won't stand it if you defend your money, so he's prepared to kill you, kill him first. Don't wait till he pulls the gun. So if you're going to stop, you're going to protect yourself against those actions, then these auxiliary forces that bring about the actions have to be opposed. This is why some of our leaders are talking about, after the war is over, that the whole culture in Gaza has to be changed. One of our leaders used the phrase Denazification, which sounded unfortunately identical to what the Russians say about Ukraine, which is just a lie. So he dropped it, but that's what he means. There can't be any promotion of killing Jews as a high ideal, as a definition of human success. That has to be taken out of the schools. It has to be taken out. That will take a long time. This is why I don't know if it will happen because of international pressure and the rest, but it was said at the beginning that in the end, the ultimate responsibility for security in Gaza has to be Israel. It wasn't just preventing Hamas from regrouping and regenerating themselves. It's much more than that. It's to institute a change in the culture, rewrite all the school books, to find, let's say, the 30% who are in favor of sanity and prosperity for themselves and their children, and let them be the ones to rewrite the culture and make sure that there can't be any opposition to it. You say this is utterly impractical? It might be. It might be. But it's justified to try because you're protecting yourself against evil actions. Some people want to draw a comparison between Japan and Germany after the Second World War. The propaganda, and millions of Americans died, millions. And the propaganda that they're subhuman and that they're evil. And I was born in 1943, but I remember the literature that persisted for years afterwards. Somehow, very quickly after the war, they were converted into allies. Japan became democratic, which was not part of their tradition at all. Worship of the emperor stopped. There's a whole revolution in the culture. The idea of Aryan superiority and the destiny of the Aryans to rule the world, the vast majority of Germans don't believe that. America had forces stationed in Germany and in Japan, not only to ward off the threat of the Russians, but they should know they were conquered And it's going to be a new world. And they succeeded. They are both staunchly democratic countries. They're both staunchly in favor of Western liberal values. Now you say, well, that's not Muslim culture. That's not Arab culture. I agree, it isn't. In fact, my impression is, from the little that I've read, that the Muslim Arab world is absolutely astonished at what happened to Germany and Japan. Their attitude is, we'll remember this for 1,000 years. Our hatred for you will never die. Okay, if so, then it's impractical. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Life has surprises in it. We don't understand how human beings and societies work perfectly. We don't understand how we ourselves work perfectly. So it's certainly worth a try. The alternative is continuous monitoring to protect yourself against those evil actions. Whether it comes from programming or not, whether it comes from brainwashing or not. You have every right to do that because the actions are evil actions. Yeah.
Also, some of our enemies, I think Iran, claims that, if I understood correctly, it's nothing against the Jews, it's against the Zionists. So I don't know specifically what Hamas, I think it's, well, that's smart, just like shoot everyone. But how do you see that? Do you think like there's something to distinguish, or what are your thoughts about this kind of like distinguishing between Zionists and Jews within this hatred and this conflict?
Well, I think it's complicated. We're talking now about the difference between hating Jews and anti-Semitism. There are Jews in Iran right now, and they're not murdering them, even though they've threatened to blow the state of Israel off the map. I can conceive of it. I know in many places anti-Zionism is just a cover for anti-Semitism, and there's good reason for that. Let me just sketch that briefly. When people oppose the state of Israel for certain reasons, and those reasons apply many other places in the world, and they are completely oblivious to those places in the world, when it's pointed out to them, they don't mind, they don't care, then you have to ask, why is it, if these are the things the state of Israel is doing, and these are the things which you say you're against, and that's why you condemn Israel, why don't you condemn North Korea? Why don't you condemn Soviet Russia? Not Soviet, I'm sorry, contemporary Russia. Why don't you condemn China? You know, there was I mentioned this earlier, but since you asked it on this recording, I'll mention it. There was a fellow who went to a college campus, and he pretended to ask students for signatures on for a petition in support of the Palestinians in Gaza. So he says to the student, this is in support of the Palestinians in Gaza. Oh, we sign? Sure, I'll sign. But we have a rule, we have to tell you what it says. One of the things it says is that homosexuals will be prosecuted and killed by law. I sign here. Oh, really? That's what they believe? Oh, I don't think I want to sign that. No, I'm not going to sign that, you know. And then women have no right to vote, and they have no right to act independently of men, and so forth and so on. Sign right here in favor of the Palestinians in Gaza. Oh, no, sorry, I don't think I want to sign that. Yeah, so in other words, if this is your support for the Palestinians, this is your hatred for Israel, and North Korea is fine and China is fine, you're not being motivated by the bad policies of the state of Israel. You're being motivated by something that's specific to Jews. So that's where anti-Zionism is a cover for anti-Semitism. Now, in Muslim cases, it might be more possible to separate it, because Muslim doctrine is, and Hamasniks have said this, it's just that the leftist press won't let it be publicized. They have said that, according to Muslim doctrine, no state without Sharia Muslim law deserves to exist. Every state in the world is illegitimate if it's not run on Muslim Sharia law. So that means the United States is illegitimate. Canada is illegitimate. Australia is illegitimate. Nigeria is illegitimate. White, yellow, black, makes no difference. You're all illegitimate because you're not Muslim. Right? And it's specifically that there should be a non-Muslim state in the center, in the heart of the Muslim world. That's something which is absolutely unacceptable to them. And one way to see it in historical perspective, and they do talk about this, is that there were 3 crusades from Europe on behalf of Christianity, not on behalf of Jews or Judaism. And they came into this area of the world, and for a time they conquered Jerusalem, and they held Jerusalem for the Christians, and the Arabs were the Muslims were just as angry about it. They weren't more angry against us than they were against them, and they chased them out, and they murdered them and chased them out. So to say that it is anti-Zionist and not anti-Semitism, there might be a case to be made for that. But the anti-Zionism is evil. It's also evil. There's not only one evil in the world. Does it come from their religion? Yes. That means their religion has some evil aspects to it. And then what you hear from people is, but that's what they say about you. Yeah, that's what they say about me. So? That doesn't mean that because they say it, they have equal status. Let me introduce you, if you don't have children, to what children do. You have 2 boys in your family, one's 6 and one's 5. One comes running to you, he hit me, crying. You turn to the other one, he says, he hit me first. And this one says, no, he hit me first. But only one of them's right. The other one's lying. Doesn't neutralize because each one can say to the other, make sound waves arbitrarily. One's right and one's wrong. So the fact that he can say, I call you evil also, he can say that. But that doesn't make us equal because we're both saying the same words. In one case, the words are true. In the other case, the words are false. Hard for you to distinguish which is which? Golly, give me a year of your life so I can introduce you to human life. Right? Only we are entitled to a state. Only we are entitled to rulership. Because we have a religion that says so, that just means your religion is evil. In general moral terms, your religion is evil. So that's where I can oppose Iran on the grounds that its intended actions are certainly evil. Again, without passing judgment on how many of them are brainwashed and all the rest, and how many are just evil people as well. And I can oppose it in any way that I have to, because their actions are aimed at me as an Israeli citizen living in the land of Israel. In moral terms, they have no right to do that. Yes, it's a class of civilizations. Yes, it is. It's a class of conceptions of the world, class of cultures. Yes, it is. It's a clash of visions of ultimate values and ultimate morality. Yes, it is. It is a clash. So, I don't have to apologize for my position on the grounds that they also have a position. I think I have adequate grounds for my position. So they say the same thing? All right, if you're an intelligent person, a fair-minded person, examine the grounds. Examine them. Take a look. See what they see what they're coming from, and see what kinds of reasons they give, and see who's making a reasonable case. That's the invitation. So I don't think you can simply say, especially for Muslim anti-Semitism, that it's for anti-Zionism, that it's only anti-Semitism. But it's evil nonetheless, and since it's evil nonetheless, we have every, not only right, we have a responsibility to oppose it and to eradicate it to the extent that we can. The question is, I guess, how far this goes. There are moderate Muslims, especially some in the Western world, who claim, I'm not a scholar of the Quran and I can't pass judgment, they claim that Quran can be presented in a way that isn't jihadist, that isn't favor of conquering the world by the sword and eliminating your enemies by killing them, and so forth and so on. If there are, and if there is such an interpretation, it would certainly be worthwhile to give them a platform and give them resources and to promote dialogue between them and other Muslims to see whether there could be some accommodation made where the culture evolves. This the decolonization, right? So there's a very interesting case. Let's take India. There is a principle in certain aspects of Indian religion. When a man dies, his body is incinerated, and his living wife jumps into the flames and dies with him. I don't know. It sounds a little cruel to me. She has to die with him, jumps in alive. When the British colonized India, they outlawed it. Just inhumane and horrific. Okay, but listen, in 1948, India became independent. Did they go back to that practice? Not really. The vast majority didn't re-accept it. It's only the British colonizers who stopped us from living out our own culture and our own values and our historical traditions. But now that the British are here, no, actually they didn't do that because it seems they were introduced to a certain culture and a certain set of values and a way of living, which in their own eyes was superior. They learned something they didn't know. So were the British colonizers victimizing them by outlawing their ancestral practice of the living wife jumping into the flames to die with her husband? Maybe not. Maybe on the basis of their own judgment that they didn't restore the ancestral practice. Maybe they benefited from the colonization. That also could happen. Now, if the British colonization of India could bring about that kind of a change, I don't know. I can't compare Indian culture with Arab Muslim culture. I don't know enough about the cultures, but if you have Japan and Germany as a Western example, if you have India as a non-Western example, maybe something like that could happen in the Muslim world as well. Maybe, who knows? It's at least worth a try. Otherwise, the opposition would simply have to be by force because we have no reason whatsoever to hesitate in defending ourselves against evil actions directed at us to injure us in any way. The last remark I want to make is about this concept of proportionality, which I think is very widely misunderstood. Some people think proportionality means you can't use any means against them other than or stronger than the means they use against you. If they're shooting bows and arrows at you, you have to use bows and arrows, nothing else. Otherwise, it's not proportional. Nobody believes that. Nobody in international law. Has nothing to do with the concept of legal concept of proportionality. Other people say, well, you have to measure the losses. If you're going to cause them the losses of civilian life, innocent civilian life, in your attacks, that can only be because you've suffered that much loss. So then you can cause them because that'll be proportional to what you've suffered. But you can't cause them more than what you've suffered. That's also wrong. I don't think there's a single opinion in international law which thinks that's what proportionality means. Proportionality means this. It's a little vague, but this is what it means. You're only allowed, in attacking another country or another group, to try to achieve militarily important objectives. So therefore, you're going to target military personnel or military supplies. You're not going to target civilians. Now, when you target the military materials, you may, in order to destroy the military materials, have to kill innocent civilians. That may happen. The civilian deaths have to be proportional to the importance of the military goal. How much is in proportion? It's very hard to put it down to. But for example, there was a case a few weeks ago where Israel dropped a bomb in a so-called refugee camp, which killed something like 45 people who weren't obviously Hamas terrorists. They may have been, but weren't obviously, because underneath was a bunker, and one of the commanders of the battalions in Gaza was sitting in that bunker. So they dropped the bomb to kill him underneath. Well, there were people on the surface also. There's an article which, to its everlasting credit, I never think I would live to say this, CNN published, from a professor of warfare, modern warfare, at West Point, who gave this example, and he said, killing the commander was a legitimate military objective, and the people there were in the way, but it was legitimate. He killed 45 to get one? Yeah, but he's a commander. And if he's gone, then his group is going to be disorganized, and it's a significant military objective. So it's not a question of how many you lost, how many they lost. It's the size of the objective and the civilian loss. If there was a pile of 6 rifles, and that they killed 45 civilians to destroy the 6 rifles, you say, sorry. That's not a big enough military objective to justify. As I said, we don't know how to make it precise and say exactly how many people and how many rifles. If they're hand grenades, it's different for rifles. And you can ask all those questions, and it's appropriate to ask the questions. But they can be obvious cases. Yeah.
So the way I know how the conflicts roll in terms of let's say the size of the bombs that are throwing. So if for example the conflict is in low flames, then there's some procedure that's called a small hit on the roof.
Yeah.
Then they move out.
Right.
But right now, obviously, after all what the atrocities that happened, in high flames, then they
at high planes.
High flames, like it's much more tension. Like the conflict is much more intense rather than than like.
I just don't know the word. What's this word? High. What's the word after high? Plane. Planes.
No,
Planes.
flame,
Airplanes.
Flame.
Flames. Flames. Oh, high flames. Yeah, but I want you to know they're doing it now also. They're doing even much more than that now. The BBC had an elaborate article how they contacted a guy who happened to be a dentist and said, these 3 buildings are going down, but they won't go down until you tell me that all the people are out. Go get them out. This is a whole long, this went on for hours.
So they
and they got them all out?
Yeah, for sure.
So they are doing it.
I'm sure that they're doing, but my question is that for me it's obvious that as like if like in my words, when the flame goes up, it's like the size of the bombs are bigger, and you see it because like those procedures are kind of like the war procedure.
I don't know. I saw a video that the IDF released. The guy on the ground says it's the 3rd floor and it's the 2nd window from the right. Gotcha, and you see the bomb come in hitting that window, that exact window. If the building is used, it's like the Hamas parliament or the high judicial thing or the Center for Military Information, they blow up the whole building. They have pictures of that as well. But they are using specific munitions and cruise missiles, which go, I couldn't believe it, it's this window, and they go straight into that window. So they are doing that. This guy said, this professor, he said, when you look at the ground and you see the destruction, you think it's carpet bombing. You think it's indiscriminate bombing. But I tell you, every one of them could have been a direct hit on a specifically chosen target. And when you have them sitting within the civilian infrastructure, that's the way it looks afterwards. It's a terrific article. The guy's not Jewish. He's a professor at West Point of modern warfare. And he says everything we're doing is according to the law. So I think that Israel has always distinguished itself in that way. And it's because that's who we are. That's who we are. That's the way we approach the world. We approach the world in this kind of principled way. Anyway, yeah, question.
Why is it so hard for the world to see that?
Why is it so hard for the world to see that? First of all, don't judge what they see by what they say. I believe, I've said this in previous years, I believe that with all the international posturing and all the international negotiations, behind closed doors, when they get alone in private, they all laugh at Israel. What's the matter with you? What you're facing, no country in the world would face that. Wipe them out! What are you waiting for? Here, Pakistan is going to expel 2 million Afghanistanis because they're not there without permits. They're going to kick them all out. Who's saying anything? Who's raising a voice? Who'll remember it 2 months from now? Nobody. We said that the whole time when we came in 67. We should have taken over the Temple Mount, left the mosques there, and left the Arabs in charge there, and so forth and so on. The whole Arab world was on its face. Right? We just didn't take advantage of the situation in the way that would have been advantageous. So don't judge what they see by what they say. In fact, I was just listening to a report now. The prime ministers of Spain and what's the other one? Were just here the other day for the first transfer of prisoners, and while they were there, they gave a statement which didn't mention October 7th, and didn't mention what Hamas did, and so forth and so on. So people were upset, and our foreign ministry was upset also. But the representative said, but afterwards they came to the government and met with the prime minister and others in support, and then they went to the edge of the Gaza envelope where the atrocities took place, and they stood there to show support. So they have Muslim populations at home, and in Spain there's a coalition with far lefty progressives. So they're under political pressures to say this because of that part of their part of their government. Okay, that doesn't mean the guy who's saying it believes it. Doesn't mean he doesn't see the truth. He has to, someone defined politics as the art of the possible. Not everything that should happen is possible to achieve. Very difficult. So I wouldn't say that it's hard to see. I have said before, in the previous year, you were probably there, that a lot of the Free Palestine stuff is just anti-Western values, Western culture. And if Western culture were in favor of saving the octopuses, then we want to kill all the octopuses. It's just stick it to you. You're Western, we're against you. You're supporting Israel. You're supporting Israel, so we're going to, these people who believe in intersectionality, so people who are women's rights and people for blacks' rights and sexual rights and all the rest are supposed to join forces, right? The women in this country are so bitterly disappointed that the international associations against violence to women, one of which is a member of the United Nations, and others against violence to women, not one of them has mentioned the rape and degradation of women that happened October 7th. Not one of them has mentioned it. Are they really in favor of saving women from violence? No, that's just a veneer. The agenda is a different agenda. So I don't think you should put it down to inability to see it. It's an ability to acknowledge it and to act on it because of a certain political stance, which itself is indefensible, really indefensible. Okay, enough said.